executive, they facilitate the pace of development. And if this institution becomes rigid, it decelerates the pace of development. Let me give the example. Our constitution is an institution, but constitution has been amended more than 100 times. What does it mean? We are amending our constitution. When we realize that certain provisions of the constitutions are decelerating the pace of our development, then we amend them. But there are certain institutions which are so rigid that they cannot be amended, and therefore sometimes they decelerate the pace of development. Let me give you the example. In our social systems, because our society, Indian society, has two types of patterns. One is horizontal patterns, and there are hierarchic patterns. So there are different religions. So Hinduism is there, Islam is there, Sikhism is there. These are horizontal patterns of our society. But there is hierarchic system of our society. One way it is hierarchy. In the hierarchy of social systems, particularly in India, in almost all the religions, we have upper caste, then we have middle caste, then we have lower caste. So it is hierarchy. This is our society. And then another hierarchy is there. Very rich, highly rich, very rich, rich, poor, very poor, extremely poor. So this is another hierarchy. So our society is such that there are sometimes problems and rigidities take place. And once this rigid situation is amended, then the acceleration will take place of development. But sometimes we are unable to. You cannot change your caste system. And caste is accident of birth. It is not the choice of a person that he is born in a Brahmin family or Kshatri family or Vaishya family or Shudra family. It is not our choice. Your choice is restricted, and consequently, this rigidity, urban areas, they are relaxing. But what about rural areas? The rural areas, it is still extremely rigid. And consequently, all those institutions, wherever they are, if they are rigid, then the development is not accelerated. That is one proposition. So if you look at these three elements, then we can see and try to understand what is development. And so these are parameters of development, which if we define and try to define what is development, development is a positive concept. Development means plus sign is there. Because there is no reversal of the process. Once the development takes place, it will go on in a positive way, in a positive manner. That is the first criteria which we apply for development. So it has a plus sign. Let me give you the example. There is a plant. Plant develops into a tree. Tree cannot develop into a plant. So it is irreversible. It has developed. So a child develops into a human being, maybe male or female, but reversal is not possible. Decay is there. It decays. The tree will fall down and decay. The leaves fall down and decay. Human beings die and decay. For human beings, actually I generally quote from Quran, which says that Kullun nafsin zaiqatal maut. All those which inhale and exhale, they have to taste the death. So whether they are animals, plants, human beings, we have to taste the death one day. So death, we cannot say that this is the extreme level of development, but you say decay takes place. There were so many civilizations. Where have they gone? They developed and decayed. There were so many cities. They developed and decayed. So development is a positive sign, but after some times decay may take place. Secondly, development is unidirectional. So reversal is not possible. It goes into one direction. It is not growth. Growth has both positive sign and negative sign. It can be plus, it can be minus. But minus growth also does not mean that uh, it is not development, because growth plus minus sign depends upon the baseline or base year. Statisticians tell us that the growth, if it is negative, even if it is negative, it is not a sort of deceleration. It may decelerate, but afterwards it may pick up. It may become plus. So in economy, we use both plus and minus growth rates. Now, if this is the development and we are trying to develop, uh, what will happen at a particular point of time? This sustainability will be attached with the development. If you are developed, highly developed, you don't have the question of sustainability, because you have moved from natural means of subsistence to natural means of production. In the initial stages, we had natural means of subsistence. So plants and animals, whatever they were sustaining us. But now, historically, people have moved from the stage of the uh, natural means of subsistence to natural resources of development or natural resources for production. What are these natural resources of production? There are certain technologies have come, and we have natural resources. And these natural resources may be mineral resources, maybe forest resources, maybe animal resources, and then there is human resource, and this resource is able to utilize with their intellectual capacity to create more resources, to generate more resources, and this production cycle gives and provides another segment of what we call as trade. Trade takes place, and even the low supply areas, now one can supply through the trade, through the production, and the trade becomes important element of our economic activity. What has happened? We had dark ages, and finally we had ages of discovery. Ages of discovery, dark ages is in reference to European continent, India and other Arab countries, of these Middle East countries or Central Asian countries. They were not in the dark ages. They were doing their work and they were doing their research. But somehow or the other, the Europeans reached the South America first. And let me give you the example of one crop, which is potato. You might have read the whole history of potato, from where potato came. Three products which have now universal approach, universal reach. One is potato, the other is tomato, and the third is tobacco. If we look from Indian point of view, or from the viewpoint of India, potato was not there till the early 16th century. From where it came? It came from the Andean mountains, and the European travelers, they took it and brought it to Europe as a fodder crop. It was never eaten. It was fed to the pigs, and pigs were fattened. And this food was eaten by human beings. So potato was converted into meat through the pigs. It was never eaten directly. So what happened? From Europe, Arabs brought it. But in Arabic, all the takar are not there. Ta, ta, da, da. These sounds are not there in Arabic. So there is no pa and there is no ta. So they called it as batatis. Batatis. The same batata was brought to Indian western coast, particularly Gujarat and Maharashtra, and the batata of Arabic became batata of Hindi. So in still you get batata bada in Bombay as well as Ahmedabad in the western coast. And in the Hindi region, all is root. And therefore we put oo and called it as alu, but alu, scientists say that it is not root, it is a stem. But somehow or the other, we have now through use, alu means the potato, and it has entered into each kitchen. Tomato also came from the same area, but Europeans never ate tomato. They kept it for decoration. Afterwards, they started eating and they found that the taste is all right and it is also nutritive, so they started eating it. And again, it came to Arabs and they call it as timatim because tomato they could not say. Tomato they could not say, so it is timatim. And the uh, travelers and also the traders, they brought tomato to India also. And uh, when it came through East India Company to Bengal, people in Bengal said that this is Vilayati Bagun. This is Bagan, that is brinjal from outside the country. So you can see the give and take. What I'm saying that we are now aware of potato. The Portuguese brought tobacco. Tobacco was never in India. It is not even recorded in Ain Akbari. During the Akbar's time, there was no tobacco in India. It is recorded that tobacco reached somewhere in 1617 in India during the reign of Jahangir. Jahangir permitted Portuguese to trade in tobacco. And after 1617, because his reign was 1607 to 1627, so in between, the tobacco arrived in India through Portuguese. So you see that now because of the traveling, the type of development which has taken place through trade, the world has become a village. That is what we call as the world has become a village, the global village. And if you look at this Krugman's new economic geography, so it is all the trade which is going to decide the future of the country, of the countries, because now it is reachable. So the is friction of space in terms of distance and also in terms of terrain. Both these frictions have been removed. What was the important at that time? The mountains, the hills, the deserts, the water bodies, it was difficult to cross them and the trade was restricted. So there was a friction, the friction of the space and also friction of the terrain. And these two have been completely finished through the air. Now you can land with your luggage anywhere and you can trade the materials from one area to other, from the surplus areas to deficit areas. And if the deficit areas have the proper money, they can go for. So this is all the type of development. But with this development, lot of problems also came. Tragedies started happening. Chernobyl happened because there is a limit to growth. We went for nuclear, and due to this mismanagement at certain points, at certain places, tragedies happened. Chernobyl leakage, the gas leakage in our Bhopal, that was another tragedy. So oil spills over the over the ocean. What happened? This our development, crisscrossing the seas through huge liners and uh, spilling oil into the sea and endangering the sea life, fish, because our future resource base is ocean. There you have lot of oceanic products which are going to be used by human beings. There are areas where there are minerals which could have been exploited, but this spilling of oil over the sea has damaged. Then nuclear waste, where to dump this nuclear waste which we are creating? Where to throw it? Because nuclear waste is not 100% neutralized. Even if it is waste, there is some radioactivity available in that. So if you throw just like garbage, it is going to be very dangerous. So this is one sort of developmental situation which is not a desirable development. So what is the remedy? The remedy was actually UN became very active and during 80s when these tragedies were taking place, and they created a commission UN development uh, of where this lady uh, Brundtland became the chairman of United Nations Environmental Commission, and she was given the task of suggesting what are the situations through which uh, we can reduce this tragedy and the mess. And she was the person who came out with a report, the Common Future, Our Common Future in 1987. And there she came out with a concept of sustainable development. The resources are there, we have to utilize those resources. But at the same time, we have to be very careful that we do not overutilize. And we should also keep some resources for our future generation. That was the basic concern, that the present generation is using resources, so they should use with restraint and they should not overuse it and leave it for the future generations also. That was the basic crux of our argument. Two, three things emerge from there. One is that our technological capacity is so much that we are damaging our environment. Damage in the form of the global warming, gases, greenhouse gases, rise in temperature, and rise in oceans level. The developed countries have their own strategies. They have created a strategy to combat this type of disaster if it is going to take place. But some of these poor countries, they are unable. They are coastal countries, but if the sea level rises, then what will happen? The developed countries have their contingency plan. But what about the poor countries? They do not have this contingency plan at all. Then she is arguing that there should be consideration for the future generation also. So there should be a limit to the development. Now there are two questions which arise. We are overutilizing because we have created technology